My name is Gretchen Starks-Martin, and I am a part-time faculty here in the College of St. Benedict in the Education Department. And I teach 2 courses in this department for middle and secondary school students. And I'm going to show you 3 different assignments that I use using open access education. And I don't want you to take notes, I want you to multitask. And I want you to just think about how you may use it in your particular content area. Okay, here we go. Okay, slideshow, front slide. I do have handouts, however, I know that some people collect handouts and then they throw them away. And so I have them up here, and I'll tell you what I have for handouts, and if you would like them, you can come and get them later. I have to admit that I am a retired professor emeritus from St. Cloud State University. Is that okay? And so I get, but it's good because what I have is I have access to all the workshops and all the things that they do as well. And I have been going to workshops for the Minnesota State University system on open access education. And I've learned a lot about licenses, what you can use and what you can't use in open access education. And when I'm not sure, I always call our librarians because they're up on it. So if you're using this, make sure you use your librarian's copy, Parker, for instance, as a resource for that. The Minnesota State system has a repository for all the books that have been recommended to use. So as Henry was saying before, he couldn't find a chemistry book that was open access, so he did his own. And I think I'm there because what the Minnesota system does is it reviews all the open access books, and from that review, what I did was, oh, that little thing is, oh, here it is. Aha, she showed me how to use this today, new thing. Right? Now it's not going on. Oh, there it is. And so I chose one for my students. My objective was to have the students have a textbook that they didn't have to pay for. And so this had good reviews, and so it was an Open Oregon Press books. And so I took a look at that book because the course I teach is in college reading. It's reading efficiency and flexibility through literal and critical comprehension refinement and metacognitive strategy improvement with a critical reading emphasis. Basically, it's to help students here on our campuses in their college reading. I have education students that are taking a test for them to get their license. I have a lot of students that are international students, and I have students that want to keep their grades up or be eligible to play football, maybe. So I have those students in my class as well. I can see if this will come up fast. However, it didn't, did it? So I'll go back to, okay. And these, when you take a look at these books, Henry Wright, that's kind of what they look like. And this one is from Phyllis Nisela from Oregon. But when I looked through the book and I looked at my objectives, they didn't fit very well. So I took a look, and they had great surveys in this book. So I had students take the surveys and use them in discussions. They had great case studies of students in this book, so I used those case studies for discussions. I am suggesting that if you use an open access book and you don't have the time and the 20 years that Henry did to write the book, that you make sure that those parts of the book fit your objectives for your course. Now, what is the result of using this book? The result was that for the first time since I have been here, I didn't have any criticism of my textbook. Now, I don't know if it was because they're not paying for it, or because it fit my objectives. But I think it was one of both. So that's my suggestion to you if you're using these kinds of things. Okay. Oh, here we go. What I really like using the OER for, however, is objective. I want my students to be published. Now think about that as an objective. So they have to publish in this. All right. I have to go back here, don't I?
From current, yeah.
All right, I'm not going to use this. Let me use this. This is a website for students for learning, and there are different categories, but this is the one I use. These are college reading strategies and all these different kind of contents. And I hope you find your content in here because it's really important. Now, in my class, I have accounting students, I have psych students, I have geography students, I will have political science students. And my assignment to them, and I have my assignment you can pick up later if you want, is they have to develop a college reading strategy for one of the courses that they are taking here on campus. And it cannot be my course, it has to be a course preferably that they're having some difficulty in. Theology, political science, accounting, Ben often. And they have to develop their own strategy based on what they know about college reading. So this is the end of the year project. And then when they have done this, they present their strategy in the class. I send the strategy to the person who sets up this website, and she has a team of people that help her. She takes a look at all my students' assignments, and she picks 2 or 3 to put on her website, and they are published. This year, she said she put some of our students on this blog. And I think this is it. These were the awards for 2019. Let's see. Yes. And she actually took some of my students and put them first, second, third place, and then they can hit on that and you can see what they have done. This is one that she chose to put on the site. I liked it that she chose this because it was Shibu Tong who was really having difficulty with English, and yet he used his translator, his OER translator, and he came up with this How to Read a Math textbook in applied calculus. He also had to put down his source. Now here's what happens. The students get published, they put it on their resume. An added thing that has happened that I didn't think about was that some of the people that use this website say, you know, there's a conference in Minneapolis. Do you think that some of these students could come down and talk about their reading strategy that they have developed? And I've had 5 students so far, Minneapolis and Duluth, that have come down to a college reading conference and presented to college reading professors and faculty about the reading strategy that they developed. Now, their self-esteem went shoo, if you can imagine, with that. It was really good. I had one student that was so nervous that I had to sit in the back of the room and I said, don't look at anybody but me. Just look at me and do your thing. So that has been very, very successful. And this fall, in November, on this particular class that I had in the spring, she said, I want to take 5, not 2 or 3. I'm going to put 5 of these strategies up on my website because they were so well done. And I would like to present them at a conference in New Orleans. And I went to Jennifer and said, can you pay for 5 students to go to New Orleans? And she says, you know, forget it. So what they're going to do is, with their permission, of course, they are going to put their 5 college reading strategies for specific contents. They're going to put it in a poster. and she's going to bring the poster down and use these as examples from the poster, and she promises to send one to us as well, so we can have that to display so you can see it. But think about OER to publish and get your students published. Okay. What questions do you have before I go to the last assignment that I do? Have you been thinking about how you might be able to do that? Some friend you know that has a website or something? Okay. All right. The other course I teach is teaching reading in the middle secondary classroom. The Board of Teaching here has a requirement that all students who are teaching in middle and secondary school have to have disciplinary literacy. And that means they have to somehow embed literacy or reading in their lesson plans. And so at the end of the semester, I have an assignment for an interdisciplinary lesson plan before, during, and after reading, but they have to use OER because I think the publishing companies are scared, and I think that our teachers, as we teach them, they're going to be using OER in their classrooms in middle and secondary school. And so my objective here is not for them to learn from OER, but for them to teach using OER. And so for this assignment, what they have to do is they have to actually put OER within their lesson plans and their unit. And as I thought about that, some of my students said, I might be teaching, one student said, I'm taking this class, I might not be teaching, but I might be going into business. But you know what? I'm going to be having to use OER if I do any training in my business as well. And so I think it has, if you're in the content, think about how you might use OER for teaching, to getting the students to teach. I'd like to show you this semester what I found out is that in English, the English people in my class used the book The Outsiders. They used Padlet for a vocabulary discussion. They used iPads for journal responses. And they use something I'd never heard about, Schoolology, which where students can connect to specific classes. I learn every semester from that, OER. ESL, my ESL students used an OER road trip with an audio recording, speed modification, linking to Google Translate. They then used Creative Commons with place images, Golden Gate Bridge, Grand Canyon, etc. And then they used AnyFlip to make a book. I had no idea what that was, so I learned that one this semester. Music used OER with a piano with actual hand practice, and YouTube on sonata forms. Science used a video with 3 articles. Now they didn't put the articles in the lesson plan, you have links. And that again is your licensure that you have to be careful about. And so they used the 3 articles with links, and they used a quiz for their lesson plan called Plickers. History used a video on women after World War II with 3 links, advertisements, and they actually took this, presented this lesson plan in their student teaching, and I got feedback from their teacher that that was really good. So, what I have brought for you today is a future generic OER assignment that you might want to use. The workshops that I've been taking at the Minnesota system. I actually have the resources workshop. I have a handout on that. And helpful handbooks and OER resources that they have. And also how to set up OER to match your course objectives. Because that's important. If you're going to use it, it has to match. What has happened this semester is using OER actually for the first time that I actually said the students had to use OER is I got my best student evaluations. So I think I'm going to use it again, and it's the way to go. The students like it. Okay. So I'm going to take some questions, and you had one, Henry? Yes.
Yeah, I was with my online book. I've asked students to contribute to it, with the idea that they would be an author on that particular chapter. So they seem really interested, but sometimes the math gets in their way. So what I need particularly now is mathematically sophisticated students that can do it, but they're really excited when they have the chance. I have two students.
To publish.
Yeah, I have two students doing this summer.
Now, when the students present to publish on that website, I say, this is draft, kids. And then I always edit them right in class, and you gotta correct the spelling and this and that. You have to do this, you haven't put your resource in, you haven't put your name in, et cetera, et cetera. And so before you submit this, before I submit this, you have 24 hours to edit it. And so when I send it into the website, it is edited. So, and that's good. That's good too. I mean, if you're an English teacher, you know it's the draft and then the copy one. What other questions? Yeah. If you've got any ideas you've been thinking about, and you've been multitasking at all, thinking about what you might want to do, or you might want to incorporate this? Everybody's tired today. Okay. Well, next week I'm going to go to the writing retreat, and I'm going to further delve into this. And I'm really interested in Kathy Parker, what she has to say about the publishing, and do a further thing. And I'm going to ask you, Henry, can I get into your course, your math or chemistry book at all?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, send me send me how I do it, because I'd like to see. Obviously, you've been at it a lot longer, but I am convinced that in order for me to meet my objectives, I'm going to have to write my own too.
Right.
Yeah, and it takes. I hope it doesn't take 20 years, because I'll be dead.
Well, one of the things when I come to these meetings, I hear about all these new cool things like this interactive flipping book. Is there like a repository that the library holds of like the latest cool things? Because I can see a lot of uses for some of these things, but not, unless I come to one of these things, I'll never hear about it.
Yeah, there is no repository that we have. I basically rely on, we have a technology services team. Miranda Novak's the head of that team. Sort of my backup is Ask Bennett. So if you've ever met Bennett Frisco on our staff, he just sort of keeps up with cool things and knows where to look as well. And so because it's changing too fast, it's really not worth it for us to invest in documenting some of this when there are other sources that are, documenting it, and you just need to know to look.
Well, it's energized my teaching using OER, that's what I can say. And I have the workshop handouts from the Minnesota system, and I also have my assignments here in the Minnesota system, and so if you're interested, you can pick them up before you go to lunch, but I want to go to that. So, any other questions? What other questions do you have? Can I take one more question? I mean, this guy's coming up. What other questions do you have? Kyle, what do you think?
Looks good.
Well, I know, but I mean, he's with the Writing Center, and I always have my students go there. How might you use this in the Writing Center, do you think?
Oh, in the Writing Center. I don't know, I've been mostly thinking about it in terms of the classroom. So, for instance, Kristen here was in my class last semester, and one of the assignments was to do a climate storytelling. Like a blog post, and the post that Kristen wrote is now on the Climate Generation Storytelling Archive, which is a Minneapolis nonprofit.
Okay, see, that's good. Yeah, your students will start doing some really good work and actually publishing some things too. You can get them on OER. So we don't make any money, but we don't care, do we?
Right.
Okay, thank you very much.